And we're live. How's it going, Mets fans? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it with the latest live edition of our Mets news and rumors segment this evening, that being January 15th, 8:41 p.m. Eastern, because if I'm not late, then clearly something is going wrong. But all jokes aside, thank you guys so much for your continued patience. To all my live stream viewers, to the hundreds of thousands of you guys right now, and to our thousands of viewers after the fact on replay, let us know your biggest takeaway from everything that we're about to highlight in the comments down below. Don't worry, folks, after we're done being live, it won't be too long before I have timestamps put up for all my replay viewers, because we have a plethora of topics to get into tonight, everybody, that we're going to highlight. First, we're going to get into Juan Soto. He has been in attendance there with the Mets and their DSL complex there that they have been promoting, and obviously not presenting their signings there that we've seen in the Dominican Republic. We're going to hear some comments from Juan Soto over this past day and really his impact there on a lot of the youngsters there in the IFA pool. From there, we're going to highlight the key moves the Mets made today on the prospect front, signing 15 young players. We're going to get into each and every one of them, who exactly they are, and their potential upside. Not with all of them, but with certainly some of them, headlined by Elian Pena. From there, we will get into the latest on Pete Alonso. Why is there still a stalemate there in his negotiations? So much so that even after Scott Boras and Alonso have presented a 3-year offer with opt-outs, the Mets are still not budging and are standing firm on what they want between the two. So there is still clearly a gap on not only value from how the player and Alonso feels he's worth versus how Stearns and Cohen evaluate him, but also still maybe on the term to a degree. And that very well can go in hand with why the Mets are now actively in the market for, yes, you heard this, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We talked about this on the platform just over a week ago, where our buddy Jim Riley from the Ballcap Sports YouTube channel, big MLB content creator that will be doing content tonight separately from my own, I'm sure, while also being a diehard Blue Jay fan. So he threw out a proposal as a trade that would make sense, at least per baseball trade value, as a trade simulator online. I was in favor of it, and it's funny how a week plus later, these things that were initial just fun, speculative talk are now a greater reality than ever. No, it's not a slam dunk that Vladdy will be traded this offseason, far from it, but this interest is not only one, the Mets playing a game with Scott Boras and Alonso, making it clear that they want a decision and soon, but also that the Mets are in fact interested in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as we look ahead not only to the trade deadline, but certainly next offseason. From there, folks, we'll get into the latest on the bullpen, as the Mets are actively targeting southpaw, most formerly of the New York Yankees, in which he had playing success there last year, Tim Hill. We'll get into why that would be a strong pickup for the Mets in the bullpen, why it can't be the final lefty bullpen move that they make in this pen, I'd rightfully argue. They also claimed Austin Warren today. We'll get a bit on his game, exactly what you guys need to know about the right-handed reliever, and anything else in Mets land that there is to touch on tonight, we will certainly do that. So thank you guys again for smashing that like and subscribe button as your first chime in. It's greatly appreciated. Like I said, we have a jam-packed show today, where I'm going to try to be as regimented with kind of having everything nice for our timestamps for my replay viewers after the fact, so it's not too sporadic in the topics of discussion. But naturally, when you guys donate and you ask specific comments, that's where we may get a little bit all over the place, but that's okay. Donations are never asked, are always appreciated though, so thank you guys so much for the endless support every time that you have done that. I know that you guys continue to do so. But let's now get into what I think is a very important start of today's conversation, which has everything to do with Juan Soto. But before I talk about Juan, let's get a quick roll call in here. So thank you guys so much for chiming in. We got White Mike in here. We got Scott H. How you doing? Sanders, ZS, Scott, Victor, Tom, Michael, Smith, Jesus, Skip, Vinman. How you doing? We got Julio Jr. We got Sanders. We got Sal Fazio. We got Mike Norton. We got Ralph Iglesias. We got Zabel Urena. We got Cookie in here. We got Oddville and Vinny, Ramon going up the list here to all my live viewers, replay viewers. Let's get some hype in the comments down below to all my OGs that have been supporting the platform. If you're new, thank you so much for joining the largest Mets community here on YouTube, not directly affiliated with the Mets themselves. Eddie C, great member. Steve Long, great member. Mike O'Neill is great member. Leo, great member. How are you guys? Long time no see. Daniel, Jin, Ben, Ralph, going up the list here. Ron, Mike Bartholomew, Xavier Gonzalez, how are you, my friend? Santiago Cruz, how are you? Going up the list. Snarf, Scott A, making sure I didn't miss anyone. Raphael Gordon, if I missed anyone's name, please know it's not purposeful. We got a lot of people in the chat. We're going to have a lot of people watching throughout the entirety of the show here, so bear with me. Michael J. Stroh, great member as always. Paul, how you doing? Z, how you doing? Going up the list here. Ivan, Will White, Johnny Cage, Keto Rising, a longtime follower supporter. Ben Heineke, how are you? Thank you guys. Hacks, LFGM, baby. appreciate you. JJ, Juan Papo, thank you guys. Moon Shadow, great member. You guys are absolute beauties. Hacks, we don't got to continue with the spam, but I appreciate it. I will say that if you're going to spam anything, LFGM is probably the best thing to spam usually, right? But I'm happy to have you in here. Unless you guys want to start spamming the LFGMs in the chat, by all means, go ahead. I'm never opposed. To my members, make sure you use the official hashtag LFGM little emoji that we have made for you guys as well if you want to do it. Why not? It is absolutely a good night to just be spamming LFGM. Dave Kaplitz, my man, how are you, brother? Thank you so much for chiming in. Hi, Tyler, sending you a package next week. Dave, you're a madman, but I love you so much for it. I say that obviously jokingly. You're beyond generous, and I'm always beyond grateful for everything you send my way. So thank you so much in advance, Dave, for whatever that is, and I look forward to unveiling that here on the platform. And I'm looking forward to even connecting with you as well throughout the regular season like we've done the past couple years. Alonso for DH and Vladdy for first base. Make it happen, LFGM. That I don't foresee to happen as much as I would love to see it happen, Dave. I mean, there would be no better way to head into 2025 regular season than Pete Alonso as your DH and Vladdy as your first baseman. Bring on the Dodgers is all I have to say. Vladdy, Alonso, Soto, Lindor, Vientos, Nimmo, Alvarez. That's disgustingly good. But the reality is, that isn't reality. So, I love the way you think. Far from reality, though, Dave. Love you, LFGM, baby. Edwin Castro, great member in here. Edwin says, bet US should have the over-under if Pete fires Boris after this mess. They really should. I'm going to have to talk about my friends at Bet US, America's #1 sportsbook. They're real soon about their potential future props, right? If you guys have it already as well, perfect transition into the quick plug, Edwin, so thank you so much for that. If you guys don't know Bet US, but you're a sports bettor and would like to get in on the action with an awesome promo, then listen up because we got you covered by going to betus.com.pa today and using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That is YouTube150. That way you two get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000 for whatever you want to bet on. And good luck to my sports bettors. I have a 2-leg NBA parlay up tonight, and we will see how that does. And good luck to anyone that tailed from our content from earlier in which we showcased the parlay, and we'll see how it does. If it concludes by the end of the live show, if not, we'll talk about it tomorrow, barring changes on the platform. But Edwin, appreciate the donation as well. Butch, how are you? Thank you so much. Paula, LFGM, Rays, and Mets, how are you? Appreciate you guys greatly. Vinny, you guys are absolutely amazing. So, without further ado, let's get into the Juan Soto comments. Let's talk about the prospects the Mets signed today, and then we'll go from there.
For the kids, just keep playing hard, keep being focused on what you want. Put a goal and then try to accomplish. Try to be focused on what you want to, why you're here, and who you're doing it for. To be mindful every time you're going on that field, just thinking about that and try to give you 100%. Because you don't know how it's going to end it up, but you make sure you give you 100% every day. So whenever you retire from this game, you make sure you give everything that you have. For the kids,
There you go. Love that. And if you guys don't know, Juan Soto not only spoke to a lot of young players that were signing with the Mets and others there at the DSL camp, but he also, we saw, really had some one-on-one close experience and had some good talks with specifically some people that the Mets were signing, including their #1 prospect that they signed today, which I'm still so ecstatic about, because the more that I inform myself on this young man, the more I'm absolutely smiling cheek to cheek on the reality of him potentially blossoming to the point of being a professional player as early as the range of 19 to 21 years of age. Yes, it isn't outlandish at all. It's somewhat of an expectation with the following player. That is Mr. Elian Pena. For the Mets to get the job done and to sign the guy that, again, they've been connected to for quite some time, so this isn't shocking to hear or find out. We've known about this news that was inevitably going to happen over the past year or so now, which is exactly why I had my recording already set up that I did multiple days ago with Joe DeMeo of S&Y. We just dropped it today once the news became official. If you guys didn't check out our video from this morning on thoroughly breaking down Elian Pena and his game and why the Mets want the Lakes to make him the highest signed player bonus-wise in franchise history of $5 million flat there, and was also the largest bonus among all eligible Latin players today in the IFA pool in this year's class. So outside of Roki Sasaki, who's representing the MPB in what is an anomaly of a situation, Elian Pena was the most costly player. He goes to the Mets here, and this is a man who's been connected to the Mets now for over a year. And as Joe DeMeo so greatly broke down in our video earlier today that I implore you guys to check out at some point on Pena, in simple terms, you're looking at a 5-tool talent with tremendous tremendous bat speed and power from the left side of the play as a shortstop that likely projects better at the corner position, meaning the hot corner third base. And he has had comps to, yes, Rafael Devers, because of all the things I just listed each and every one of you. His swing is free-flowing, it's effortless, and as we even see with some of the BP that he does, with typical what seem like are line drives, he's absolutely hitting nukes out of the park with without a problem. And at the young age of 16, having just turned 17 over the past couple months, Elian Pena does in fact have the potential not only as a 5-tool talent, but so much so that we could see him break out in the bigs as early as a guy like Juan Soto did with the Washington Nationals. And have Juan Soto now a part of this group who will have his direct hands and impact not only on the roster at hand for the Mets throughout the 162, but certainly the minor leagues and everything that transpires throughout the course of spring training. This is only going to bode wonders for players like Elian Pena, who continue to look up to guys like Juan Soto, and the prospect of them playing with him in the near future, I'm sure, is uber exciting to him, as it is to many of us Mets fans at the idea of assigning a young prospect that could impact this team no later than, say, 3 years from now. It isn't out of the realm of possibility that we see someone like Elian Pena making an impact from as early as 19, and I'd honestly be surprised if he's not doing something at the major league level by the time that he is just turning 22. I think from the range of 19 to 21, we're really going to find out a lot about Elian Pena, and the hype is far more pronounced even than when the Mets signed Giovanni Rodriguez, the catching prospect a year ago, and obviously Vladdy Miguel Guerrero, who is the half-brother of Vladdy Guerrero Jr., that we're going to highlight later on today's show on the Vladdy trade rumors and everything going on with that, so be on the lookout for it, as well as Simone Juan, who hasn't done too much really so far at the professional level since signing with the Mets a couple years ago, and Francisco Alvarez has been the most notable IFA signing in recent history outside of even guys like Ronnie Mauricio as well. But this is massive for the Mets, and if we put the Roki Sasaki situation and sweepstakes aside, we have to be not only grateful that the Mets have Elian Pena, but ecstatic that they were able to land him and quite literally land what many believe to be the best and pure talent, position player-wise, in this entire class. So, Mets fans, again, if you would like a further deep dive on Elian Pena, please check out our breakdown with Prospect Guru, literally the man that anyone should be asking about what is there to know on guys like Elian Pena, among others, because he's literally paid for a living to work on specifically Mets prospects. That's SNY's Joe DeMeo. Check out our segment from earlier today. But to put a cap on it, this was rounding out the Mets signings. Again, they signed a total of 15 players there in their international signings, and they are the following. I'm going to probably butcher at least half, if not the majority of these names, so apologies in advance if I sound more ridiculous than I typically do here on the platform. But we're going to go with, okay, let's see, Almedo Barria, and he is a right-handed pitcher out of Panama. Then we're going to have Yonel Culo, and he's going to be an outfielder out of the DR. Then we have Ronnie Garcia, a shortstop slash second base fit there, so a up the middle infield fit there, coming out of the Dominican Republic. Jose Padilla, he's a shortstop coming out of Venezuela. Darlene Perez, a right-handed pitcher coming out of the DR as well. Yorber Sempron, a shortstop prospect coming out of Venezuela. Adrian Silva, a catching prospect coming out of Venezuela. Yet another Venezuelan catching prospect for this Mets team. First, we have Francisco Alvarez. If I'm not mistaken, Giovanni Rodriguez is Venezuelan as well. He's either that or Colombian. I want to say he's Venezuelan, but don't quote me on that. I'm like 85% sure right now. Let's see. Iverson Blanco, a center field prospect, also of Venezuelan descent. Kleber Gamez, or Jaimez, however you pronounce his last name, right-hand pitcher out of Venezuela too. Pablo Medina, who is a left-hand pitcher out of the Dominican Republic. Elian Pena, who we just highlighted there, the shortstop out of the DR. Yobani Sanchez, love that name. Who needs Giovanni when you can have Yobani? Right-hand pitcher out of the DR. Jose Sarasin, again, I probably butchered that one. I apologize. Catcher out of Panama, which is very cool. I love seeing these guys from Panama because it's not as common, obviously, especially there is a lack of players that have come from Panama that have even hit the major league level. So the more the merrier. That'd be great. Let's see. Jomar Ubera, and he is a shortstop prospect out of the DR as well. And Jose Vilma, who is a right-handed pitcher out of Venezuela. So, out of position players, the Mets have found themselves landing at least two, if not three outfield prospects. On the infield prospects, they've landed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's not including catchers. Just catchers. the Mets landed 1, 2. Okay, so they landed just 2. And pitchers, to round out their pitchers, they landed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A good amount of pitchers the Mets landed as well. Okay, so 6 pitchers in this mix, along with the solid amount of infielders, a couple outfielders as well. And for anyone that is not necessarily aware, and Misto, we did the Juan Soto jersey giveaway a couple weeks ago, my brother. I'm sorry to relay the message now, but unfortunately you were not around, I'd assume, when we did the live stream and we randomly selected a winner. I'm sorry to hear that, brother. But we will be doing more giveaways on the channel in the future, so don't you worry. But to go back here for a second on really one, there isn't much more that I can highlight on these players. Again, these are guys ranging from like just turning 16 to 18 there in that range, and hopefully they are their actual ages, because there's a lot of controversy that continues to go on. The IFA poll with guys from the islands, whether it's the DR, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, what have you, that a lot of times kind of, you know, manipulate their documents a little bit. You know the meme from Benchwarmers, if you guys know that iconic movie there, where you see the guy go up to the plays, he like, hey, you know, he can't be batting here, he's not like a little leaguer, and he gets past $5 saying like I'm 12 when he's clearly like in his 30s hitting absolute nukes. But yeah, it doesn't happen to that drastic of a degree, but it does happen to an extent, and that's a problem. So God willing, the Mets don't have any issues with any of the following players that they found themselves signing, because we have seen teams year in and year out continue to have an issue where some of them have to then backtrack and decommit on initially signing a player because they found out that they were 3-4 plus years older than what they actually were perceived to initially being. So that's the latest there on the moves, everybody. Let me know in the comments down below, and all of our live viewers, how do you guys feel about all the IFA signings that the Mets have found themselves making? And now, folks, as before we transition going from the IFA signings, one final thing that I would like to share with you are some remarks from David Stearns himself there at in the Dominican Republic right now, taking part in the Mets going about the signing period and what he had to say on Elian Pena in particular. So let me just pull this up for each and every one of you guys. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
Yeah, I think Pena is such a unique talent, and it's rare that a player as young as Elian becomes as famous as Elian has at this point in his career. He's only 16 years old, already likely considered one of the top prospects on the island here. Very advanced for his age, a left-handed hitting shortstop with power, who understands the strike zone, who works incredibly hard at his craft. Very unique situation where you're able to bring in someone of his talent and caliber into the organization out of the international signing process. And so a huge credit to our international scouts to get us to this point, to identify him, ultimately to work out a deal with him and allow us to enjoy a day like this. Yeah, I think Pena.
So beautifully said by David Stearns. You could really tell how much he was raving about him, and not only his bat-to-ball skills, but his hand-eye coordination array, how locked in he is at the plate, his discipline for his age. For David to be speaking this glowingly, and you can clearly tell that he can't hide the enthusiasm behind making this kind of acquisition for Elian Pena, I think is further telling of exactly why not only the Mets and their entire system are beyond ecstatic about this happening, but ultimately what it took to get here. Because there was a tremendous article that came out earlier today from Will Salmon of The Athletic that I highly implore you all to check out in case you guys haven't already. Will, who was just on the platform less than a week ago in our last live stream here up until now, breaking down the latest in Mets land with me, he just came out with a great piece further highlighting how the Mets got to this point with Elian Pena, which had to do with the fact that the Mets have been locked in on Elian Pena pretty much since, again, whether you think it's morally right or wrong, going back to pretty much when he was at least 12. And mind you, he had just turned 17. The Mets have been locked in on him for north of 5 years now, and for a great reason. I even saw Zach Scott, former Mets GM, tweet earlier today how back when he was, the Mets acting GM, how he was hearing about this 12-year-old Elian Pena and the hype around him. And a lot has changed in the Mets scouting department over the past 2.5 years when looking at the people who helped initially start the pursuit of scouting Elian Pena throughout the young years there of his development to this point. Multiple of those pieces that have helped pave the way are no longer part of the organization because they have sought roles elsewhere, or the Mets parted with them because they want to build further of their own staff, led by David Stearns, understandably so. But not everyone has left, and the people who have been a part of this from the start as well played key factors into making this happen. So the Elian Pena pursuit was not something that just started yesterday. This has been going on, I think, far greater than I think anyone could have imagined. Pretty much since essentially Steve Cohen has become owner, at minimum, the Mets have been at least aware of this kid and knowledgeable that he could become something special for any team that has the luxury of acquiring him in the IFA pool. It's bananas. So again, we'll find out. We'll see how he develops here once he gets to Port St. Lucie. I'm so excited to see how he's going to look there in the PSL, and then see how much he can develop there in the first year. Does he stay at low A? Does he move anything beyond that over the course of 2025? It'll be very fascinating to find out. If he does move all the way up to, say, whether he's at normal single A or A plus, like however they go about things, I think I'm going to be more locked in on Elian Pena than I have been with certain previous prospects, because I have not really taken the luxury in recent years to lock in on certain prospects as much as I would have liked to on the day by day, and it's easier to do that now as part of the platform. We do daily prospect segments throughout the regular season, paired with all of our in-game and post-game coverage. We recap and then we post usually the next day or so. So we will be more reoccurring on the prospect front this year than we have been in any previous year on the WardyNYM platform. But Elian Pena especially, I am going to go out of my way to try to be more locked in with, because he seems like the real deal, and for great reasons. So folks, now let's go from talking about Elian Pena and David Stearns' comments to now going all the way to where things currently find themselves on the Pete Alonso front.
Team and Pete Alonso. Every Met fan wants to know what is going on with the team and Pete Alonso, and that's understandable. You've invested your time and your energy and your feelings in this player who's come through in some really big moments and still has the kind of power that could really help provide Juan Soto with lineup protection. So I'm sorry to relay, in a sense, that the update on Wednesday on Alonso is still that the Mets and the player are really just nowhere in negotiations. There's a disagreement on value. They've come a little closer together in terms of length, but still wherever they are financially, those two sides, and that is not known exactly in terms of exact numbers, they're just not close to an agreement. Now, in an off-season, nowhere can become somewhere really quickly, and I still think in my gut that there's a very strong chance that this is ultimately going to be the fit, but the reporting is that as of right now, that fit has not happened yet. In terms of other alternatives, we've reported that the team is most likely to go internal on that infield if they don't sign Alonso. But I did report today in a column for SNY.TV that the Mets have checked in with the Blue Jays on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
I'm going to pause Andy there on Vladdy Guerrero Jr. because I don't want us to deep dive more on Vladdy right now. I wanted to be more of a natural segue from talking more on Alonso, and what has led us to the point now of even considering Vladimir Guerrero Jr. outside of fan speculation, which was the case up until reportedly because of Andy Martino of SNY today. So let's backtrack for a second here, everybody. Less than a week ago, we heard from Jim Duquette there, former Mets GM, current SNY analyst, reporting that Pete Alonso and Scott Boras have approached the Mets with a 3-year contract offer, including an opt-out after the first year and potentially second years of that deal, where it would be a high AAV. Now, the AAV has not been disclosed at this point, but the fact that the Mets and David Stearns, through not only Andy Martino's reporting today, but what's been since reaffirmed through John Heyman there of the New York Post. For those that are wondering, John Heyman of the New York Post, they just came out with their latest piece on Alonso and the urgency. I'm going to be completely honest, guys. Again, you can go check that out if you want. There's a paywall behind it, but you don't need to. It is literally everything that Andy or Ray relayed today. They're just repurposing that and saying it in their own words as well, because that's what we all do in this space. It's pretty much whispered down the alley and everyone, he said, she said, and sharing their opinions on it, and let that be that, and seeing if the opinions are varying or the same, because there was no new information from that piece to what Andy had relayed earlier today, which stated that, again, there's a significant gap still between the Mets and Alonso. And while there has been still progress to this point and trying to formulate more of a contract structure that makes more sense for both sides, it's the fact that they still are not even close, reportedly, on AAV potentially. You know, the dollar amount, the true value of how Alonso is viewed year by year. And for Stearns to be completely backed by Mr. Steve Cohen tells you everything. Oh, there's no paywall on the new Heyman article. I apologize then. I missaid that. I thought there was. Maybe I got a flip-flop with one of Joel Sherman's latest pieces, because I saw one of them had the New York Plus. I am subscribed to the New York Post Plus, especially because I work with them on the side. And don't be surprised if you guys see me do a segment with them in the very near future, as I have been doing with them in the past in SY or this past year plus. But to get back in this one for a second, where they stand with Alonso is Pete has his value, and Stearns and Cohen have their perception on what the value is for Alonso. And knowing that you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Wings ready to hit the free agent market a year from now really further amplifies the Mets' lack of willingness to want to give Alonso anything remotely close to really what he wants right now. And I know this is probably painful for Pete in various ways, but at the same time, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You know what I mean? Like, he had a chance to be extended at $160 million a year and a half ago when Billy Big Bucks offered offered the extension around the trade deadline in 2023, but he said no. And you know what? Just like how Michael Conforto denied the Mets on what was initially north of a 7-year extension, he decided not to extend with the Mets here either, and now he has to deal with the consequences of it. It's unfortunate, as someone who appreciates and admires Alonso as much as I certainly do, from the start and the breakout in 2019 to him overcoming his adversity in postseason play this year when the Mets needed to most, with their backs against the wall. Those things will never be forgotten. But at the same time, I'm wired very much so more in the mindset of, what is going to be the best route to make us a perennial contender, a real chance to win every single year? And when I look at the foreseeable future for the Mets, while I'm not opposed to Alonso being our first baseman for 2025 and beyond, I do completely see the Mets' reluctancy to want to lock in long-term at all here. The same exact reason why there is not one single team in Major League Baseball that we know to this point that is more willing than the Mets to give him anything beyond short-term high AV with potential opt-outs. The fact that the Mets are not even willing to go there is absolutely crazy to me, that they're not even willing to go to the initial proposal that Scott Boras and Alonso at least had leaked out there through Jim Duquette and among others. You know, it really is surprising to me that we have reached a point where we know publicly Pete's already down to reach the 3-year agreement, and we're not there yet. It feels like we have to be reaching this foregone conclusion now more than ever, right? Because in the latest pieces from both Andy Martino and John Heyman there of the New York Post, SNY New York Post, respectfully in different classes there. Not classes, but in their own, their lanes. SNY is here, New York Post is there. They're not conjoined at the moment. But what we know is that this is also a Mets team, and not only how they view Alonso for the short term, but ultimately in how they need to do their best on trying to separate the bias that comes with him being a homegrown talent. They love Alonso. They appreciate Alonso. They would like Alonso to return, but they are not going to let these fan-related biases that go in hand with him being a homegrown talent, the best slugger in recent Mets franchise memory, and very well could go down as the best pure home run hitter in Mets franchise history with the current projection that he's been on. With all that being true, and it is absolutely true, David Stearns and Steve Cohen also have to think what is in the best interest of not only for themselves, but the future of the organization. And with Alonso entering his age 30 season, having back-to-back down offensive years across the board throughout a 162, you can understand the reluctancy the same way that every single team is looking at David Stearns having a reluctancy and saying, okay, if your team that you've been with doesn't even want to lock you down beyond a couple years, what makes you think I want to as well, Pete? It ain't going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. Unless the team gets so desperate to the point where it really is like they're just going to shell 5, 6, 7 years because they have to land someone, then okay, so be it. But we have to have that happen first before anything else, right? But guys, just give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I have everything set up here because there was one key point that I want to make sure that I didn't miss on when it came to the reporting on Alonso and where the Mets stand. And yes, I'm so glad I made sure I didn't forget it now. It's the urgency. That's the big thing. The Mets are not going to sit on their hands. The Mets are not going to allow Scott Boras to be Scott Boras, the schmuck that he can be, and have things drag out all the way into deep February when spring training officially begins. This is not going to be a Blake Snell situation. This will not be a Jordan Montgomery situation. This for sure as hell is not going to be a Matt Chapman situation where all these guys in their commonalities signing 1-year contracts, with the opt-out after the first year or so, looking for a bigger bag. Work for Chapman, work for Snell. Certainly didn't work for Monty as he had a shit 2020 2024 season for the most part, and that's why the D-backs want nothing to do with him, or trying to salary dump him as he opted in for another year. But in the case of the urgency aspect, it's important because the Mets want to make sure they have enough time to either transition things internally or externally, with an emphasis on the external market more than anything, for a short-term stopgap option at first base or something greater. And that is why the Mets checking in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. holds so much weight. And that's why we have to now highlight and transition into not only the appeal behind why the Mets are actively pursuing Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but even with this being more of what, as Andy Martino was quoted today, saying more of a fantasy than a reality in that sense. Listen, it's a foregone conclusion that the Mets are going to be heavily linked to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. until he signs a long-term contract somewhere. Whether that's with the Mets, whether that's in Boston, whether that's back in Toronto, which does not appear to be the case at this point in time. We know that things are clearly steering in the direction of him inevitably hitting the free agent market. And we know that he also might be a huge trade bait piece at the trade deadline. The Mets making it public now, in the case of the Vladimir Guerrero sweepstakes, has a lot more to do with putting it out there publicly to force Alonso and Boris's hand to say, hey, stop pussyfooting right now. We're not doing this shit anymore. Pardon my French, folks, but I gotta be a little blunt here. The same way, that we do throughout the regular season when we're a little emotional after a big win or an absolutely dismantling loss. Sometimes we let things a little loose here. But when you look at the market, when you look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr., no one thinks he's going to get immediately traded right now. But the fact that we have some reporting, some controversial reporting that I'm going to pan to in a second, stating how the Mets may be not only a heavy player for Vladdy, but the biggest and most heaviest player for Vladdy. They may already have some trade talks going on at the moment. It isn't likely that Vladdy will be traded as of now. And where things stand on the contract front with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with the Blue Jays is, as reported that you guys can see here from Blue Jays Nation, Blue Jays offered Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 3 contracts, including one with a whole lot of deferred money. And the Jays, even, again, they've offered plenty already in negotiation with Vladdy after avoiding arbitration and signing him to that 1-year, $28 million deal. I'd also like to clarify, guys, I know Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not 28 years of age. I know I'm inevitably going to get it in the comments down below. I meant to say it sooner with the graphic. The graphic, I have it wrong. That's the same age as Alex Verdugo from the previous player that I had in the slot there. I forgot to change the age. I apologize for that. All the other things are normal and are accurate, but Vladdy is 25, entering his age 26 season. This is not a 28-year-old Vladdy. He's like at least 4 years younger than Alonso, which makes him all the more appealing. But even after avoiding arbitration between the Blue Jays and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we come to find out reportedly that, yeah, the Blue Jays are not even at a 4 in extension talks when Vladdy's looking for at minimum 4 and is probably pushing that 450 to 500 range should he get in a bidding war. Not he, but teams get in a bidding war for his services come the free agent market next offseason. And to talk a little bit here more on the Toronto Blue Jays situation, I'm going to defer to my buddies there. Shout out to them both, Adam and Nick, who do a tremendous job there at Blue Jays Today, who had this to say about the Vladimir Guerrero situation. And then from there, I will get into some other reporting for you guys.
Contract negotiation update with the Toronto Blue Jays. For context here, we know that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has given the Blue Jays the exact number that he wants and when he wants it by, which is the first day of spring training. So are the Blue Jays giving Vladdy what he wants? Well, this is what Scott Mitchell had to say on the First Up podcast this morning.
He's not only turned down 1 contract offer, he's turned down 2 over the last couple months. And, I'm pretty confident to say that. And, the fact that they haven't even started with a 4 yet, I don't think he's going to sign for anything less than 450 million. And
now, of course, this could all be a part of the negotiation process where the Blue Jays are trying to get Vladdy to step down for that high price tag. However, it's not a good feeling knowing that they're tens of millions of dollars apart and spring training is only a month away.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying. And again, love you guys at Blue Jays Today. For those that don't know them, some of the best Blue Jay content creators out there outside of my guy Jim at Ballcap Sports. They're the best in the game. And they actually just got their YouTube channel back because unfortunately they had an entire hiccup that went on with that where they were not able to do much this past week on it. But it's back and it's up and running. They're back to streaming during their thing. So shout out to you guys. Hope you guys are doing well. And I know you're not going to be happy with what I'm about to say, but the Blue Jays aren't extending Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Does anyone here at all think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is getting extended before opening day? I'll have to see it to believe it. Now, as I've highlighted in previous content, including our video earlier today on Vladdy, when the Mets initially were first reporting that they have checked in on his market at minimum, I did make note that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is someone that obviously has been linked to the Boston Red Sox. We heard John Heyman talk about that a little bit earlier today in his Bleacher Report segment, in which I actually was live in the Bleacher Report app directly after John Heyman today. I'm live Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays in the BR app for MLB News. Rumors there in that section, 4 p.m. Eastern sharp. Heyman is usually live around 3 p.m. Eastern on a every day or every other day basis typically with them. So check out the content there, because we talked a lot on Vladdy, Alonso, the IFA pool from an MLB-wide perspective, not just a Mets perspective. But let me reel in back for a second. Where the Mets are at when it comes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is they look at the Blue Jays situation. They know how vulnerable they are. And even with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. having a bias with Canada, to an extent that we've seen with guys like Joey Votto, actual Canadians, because yes, even though Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is Dominican, he is also Canadian. He is a man that grew up to a degree there that we saw in Montreal with his daddy Vladdy Sr. playing for the Montreal Expos. So this is a guy that's been familiar with Canada from a very young age versus the vast majority of players in Major League Baseball, who he already has those pre-biases with the country to a degree that can help separate himself from others. But is that still enough? Are those biases enough to say, hey, we're going to lock you down long term, when Toronto's in such bad turmoil at the moment, even with after some of the moves that they made, including Mr. Hoffman, which again was a head-scratching move when you look at Trevor Hoffman was denied initially signing a contract with both the Atlanta Braves and the Baltimore Orioles after a failed physical, in which the Toronto Blue Jays said, F it, we're going to sign you anyways. So to anyone thinking Hoffman's going to be stretched as a starter, that's to be determined right now based on his health scares. But the point I'm trying to make is the Toronto Blue Jays front office is in so much turmoil, and from front office down, ownership down, really, you look at both the managerial position and their GM position, two positions that could be vacant a year from now. Very much so could be vacant. And all it takes is another bad year of bad decisions by the Toronto Blue Jays in this front office to completely make that happen. And that feels like it also may find itself becoming a reality if they don't make smarter moves and fast. How much mistakes is Ross Atkins going to do? Because he has swung and missed on so much great opportunity. He has completely misvalued and undervalued players that we have seen in recent years. And this is, again, not to slight Blue Jays fans at all. I'm telling you guys everything that you already know. You are a Blue Jays team that had a peak offense in 2021 that, in my opinion, was one of the most impressive offenses I've ever witnessed, especially in person in my young fandom as a baseball fan. To see them not even make playoffs or do anything that year is disgusting. And then to see them dismantle things with Teoscar Hernandez out of here, right? Marcus Semien out of here, a one and done. But Bo Bichette, who will be out of here after an abysmal down year in Toronto after having some great years for them, for the most part. Kevin Biggio, the injuries unfortunately derailed him. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., the list goes on and on. There's so many bats that they just allow to walk too soon for a Dalton Varsho trade because we're going to be that thick-headed of an organization. I know. Again, I digress. I feel for you, Blue Jay fans. I feel for the ones that just want some success. I know what that's like for sure. I get that. As a Mets fan, I certainly get that. But okay, a little bit more on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Let's get into the comments that we saw from guys like Hector Gomez and Mr. Mike Rodriguez today. Now, take this with a grain of salt. Please, everybody watching live on a replay, take the following number of minutes with a grain of salt. Mike Rodriguez has gotten a couple things right this offseason, but he's gotten a lot more things wrong than right. And he has unfortunately found himself more in the category like other reporters, either coming out of the DR or Puerto Rico to an extent, where it's more whispered down the alley and just piggybacking off of what other people are saying. And then, okay, can I take this and just change a little bit of it? And then it'd be good, is essentially the same thing. Like when you're cheating, you're just looking over and you're someone's homework, or you're doing your test in class, and you're like, man, I just need to try to rewrite this sentence or just put a little bit difference to it. And for Mike here today, he notes just a couple hours after the Andy Martino reporting, because of course we find out the same day after Martino had publicly made it known that the Mets were reportedly connected to Vladdy, a source confirms to me that the Mets are trying to put together a package to present to Toronto in exchange for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. This is also the same man who had Mr. Jonathan Loaisiga going to the Mets on a 3-year, over $30 million deal or so, which never made sense on the AAV or the term. He ended up going back to the Yankees on a 2-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. But then we come to find out Hector Gomez, who has some more credibility, again, has swung and missed a lot. Hector Gomez, I'm still waiting on Francisco Alvarez to finish his extension with the Mets that he reported over a year and a half ago on, right? I understand that some things fall through. I understand you're not at fault for all that, but I also understand that, again, this just feels more of the same. So the Mets are pushing hardest for Vladdy Jr. I hope that's the case. That'd be awesome. But again, you kind of got to see it to believe it type thing. And I'm going to far more trust just what we know to this point, which has a lot more to do on just the Mets being linked. They've checked in, they've called in, they've seen about the availability. We don't know to what degree that they've talked about the availability. We don't know if they've been in active trade negotiation at this point. If so, what players have been thrown out there? Has it at all been have they gotten anywhere? We don't know. But the fact that the Mets are involved is more than just to throw out in the media to Boris and Alonso saying, hey, we need to get a deal done now. Because listen, what deal do the Mets want with Pete Alonso? They want a deal that favors them. They want a short-term deal, high AAV, potentially so that for all we know, the Mets may not want to even go beyond 2 years for Alonso. There could be such a stubbornness with Pete right now on the years because of his lack of market and knowing that no team will put him in a better position right away than the Mets, and that is a guaranteed fact. Alonso will have to immediately transition into a new organization and then to try to bank on himself again to hit the open market and that offseason ensuing after. We all saw how much he could not handle the pressure and a walk year the way that he certainly was not able to this past year up until playoffs. What makes you think that Pete is at all interested and considering to sign with a different team already at this point in the offseason that he's never been a part of just to be there as a potential one and done to then sign a long-term deal? There is not a shot in hell that that is happening until we find out the breaking news that states otherwise. I'm not buying that for a second. It's nonsense. There's writing on the wall here. Alonso needs the Mets. The Mets need Alonso. But here's the thing, they're not desperate for Alonso. Alonso, as a matter of fact, is desperate, however, for getting at least something remotely close to what he's hoping and looking for this offseason. His market has already completely shrunk for what he was initially hoping for. Now he's looking for essentially half of what he was initially wanting or so, and he's even going to get that. That feels like it's becoming a tougher reality, but thankfully things are continuing to progress. They just got to get out of this gap on, listen, he wants short-term high AV with opt-outs. We're down as well, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr. being available next offseason goes directly in hand as to why the Mets are being stubborn right now, guys. Just think about it. It makes sense. If the Mets sign Alonso to a multi-year deal with opt-out after the first and or second year, that allows Alonso to hit the free agent market again, should he do well with Soto in the slap the way that I think he really would in 2025. And then the Mets will have the luxury of either going back to Alonso, potentially even as a fallback option after going all in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? And here's the thing. Even if Alonso has a down year and maybe opts in to be with the Mets beyond 2025, if it's a 2-3 year deal, who's not to say that the Mets, A, wouldn't trade Alonso, or B, just wouldn't be stubborn and say, hey, we'll shift you to DH. And that's how it's going to be, because we want to make this team as good as humanly possible, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. continues to get us there. Oh, baby, I got to catch up on the chat real quick, everybody. Let me go ahead and do that real quick before we continue on with the show, guys. Thank you so much, everyone that smashed that like and subscribe on. It's greatly appreciated. Let us know your continued thoughts on the live show and my replay viewers in the comments down below. Your thoughts on the Mets being connected to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and others. And, guys, if you haven't already, please help us get a 300-plus likes by the end of the live show to my north of 700 live concurrent viewers. If you guys could, just half you guys, smash that like button, it would mean a lot. And to our replay viewers, if you guys could help us get a 450 to 500 plus likes, it would really mean a lot to me. And please help us get to our next short-term goal of 31,000 plus subscribers here on the platform. We've already hit 30K. We gave away a Juan Soto jersey as a thank you. For every 1,000 sub milestone that we hit on the platform going forward, we will be doing some form of a giveaway, whether it is as small as a shirt jersey for someone that ranges in that $30, $35, $40 range, or to an actual jersey of Soto of $130, $140. We will go the lengths to do that every single month for you guys, as long as you guys continue to be supporting the way that you have so greatly each and every month all year long, over the past year and over the past 4 years now on the platform. But let me go up here because there were some comments that I definitely want to highlight for a second, guys, and bear with me. And yes, guys, to answer questions, we are not doing callers tonight, but I do promise we will be doing them in the future. And I say near future, especially when the next breaking news signing happens. Don't be shocked if we do callers for Alonso news when that happens. I'll probably just cut out some of it after the fact, so it's not too elongated of a segment for my replay reviewers to watch. But yeah, we will definitely get callers in here. I want to hear your guys' input, and we may potentially do callers even much sooner before Alonso makes his decision. It just depends on the timing of my schedule and everything else, because as you guys know, I'm a dad as well, so time is not always on my side the way that I wish it was, but I do my absolute best to pump out content every single day consistently for each and every one of you amazing Mets fans. Scott, my man, thank you so much for the membership, brother. Happy to have you as always, and I hope you're doing well. Thank you, thank you. Let's see here. Daniel with the 5 gifted. Daniel, thank you so much for the 5 gifted. You get a membership. You get a membership. You get a membership, says Daniel Caps in the chat. He gifts White Mike, Jeremy R, Lounge Zena, BR, a former giveaway winner on the channel, and JD2. You guys are all now members on the platform, so you guys will now have the emojis you can use. You guys will get further shout outs from me, and thank you guys as well for being a part of the community. And Daniel, thank you so much as well. You're not slacking, brother. I'm happy to have you in here. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you greatly. Drew, how you doing? SS Master Flip. You have to be calling in Master Flip. You have to be calling in. I know you've been preaching to the choir, the Vladdy Jr. stuff as much as anybody. I saw the clip you posted like 2 days ago or so on Vladdy, and I absolutely loved it there on X. You're doing great, Master Flip. Happy to have you in here. Great follow on X. Yoshimo with the $5 holla states, again, I know it'll never happen, but I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. I'm sorry, I had to. Oh my god, I can't stop singing that song in my head. Wow. Okay. But I will stand ground forever on the Mets getting both Pete and Vladdy this offseason. It ain't gonna happen, but yes, absolutely. I need to add more emojis. You're 100% right, Michael. I need to update them. I still got buck emojis in there and stuff. I need to get a Soto emoji in there. I need to get a Vladdy emoji in there when the Mets acquire him inevitably. We got to definitely update them for sure. Had a quadruple dose. Yes, Eddie. This is our third form of content today. That is, in fact, correct. Brian, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Says, how about buying low on Bo? He's young, somebody with 25 potential, and play him at third base, also cheaper. Second, so the simple response as to why this would not work for the Mets, Brian, is twofold. It's A, the Mets are by no means going to trade for a rental player that they don't feel has a fit long-term with them. Bo Bichette doesn't have a fit with them long-term. And the simple reason as to why that is because Bo Bichette is not good defensively. The Mets are not going to trade for a defensively negative shortstop to go play a position that he is not used to playing, where he will likely play at not a proficient level consistently. Bo's awesome when he's at his best, when he has the hair flowing and everything. He's a human highlight reel. He's an electric factory, absolutely. I like Bo Bichette a lot when he's right. But Bo Bichette, I do not think at all makes sense for this Mets team. I think a guy still in Alex Bregman trying to shoot for that short-term high AV should his market continue to fall as another Scott Boras client. That is a route that makes more sense, in my humble opinion, to sign Bregman so that Matt Chapman type deal, short-term high AV with opt-outs. Hope that he signs here and that be that, and then you move Vientos to DH as your all-time DH there, so you don't got to worry about trying for a Santander, or even, as much as I love Jesse Winker, it means that it isn't mandatory to happen. Makes Marte a little bit more expendable should they wish, and then you bring Alonso back as well. That's what I would like to see happen. But Bo Bichette, I see the pros and the cons too, but I think the cons far outweighs the pros. Whereas if you're going to trade for a rental there, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's 25. He would fit a premier position for the Mets, and he fits them short and long term. Bo Bichette doesn't fit us short and long term here. He just fits us really short term, and barely does. Bob, thank you so much for the membership, Bob. Happy to have you in here, brother. Hope you're well. Thank you so much for joining the WardyNYM community. We're happy to have you in here. If you guys don't know who I am, and Yoshima, thank you so much for the gifted to Bobby G. Bobby G is a OG on the platform as well, so I'm really happy to see that. Did the Knicks fold? Are you kidding me? I didn't go to the Knicks game tonight in Philly when they're just over an hour away from me, because my schedule is too hectic. Shout out to Jake Brown, because Jake wanted to connect to go to the game tonight. I know he's at the game. Did the Knicks fold, though? Hold on. I see they're up 109-107. But how bad do they fold here? Let me see. Yeah, the Knicks are up by 2 with 7 to play. with 7 seconds to play. But who has possession? I don't know. You guys let me know in the chat. My Knicks fans, how are we feeling? Josh Hart triple-double. I'm very much looking forward to watching the highlights. And for those that also know, I do cover the Knicks on the side. I haven't, honestly, in a hot month and a half or so, because my schedule's been so hectic. But when I do, it's at the Knicks Media YouTube channel with my buddy Richie Melora, who does a tremendous job covering the Knicks. He covers the Jets on the Jets Media YouTube channel, a bigger channel for him. And he also is a part of the AFC East Roundtable. He's doing a lot of amazing things. I'm very proud and happy for him. I truly am. But I'll be doing more Knicks content as we, kind of closer, after the stuff more with Alonso dies down and we get closer to spring training, and for the Knicks, it's more around closer trade deadline and really build up from there. It's 109, Sixers ball. I hate that. YouTube picks the memberships. We don't. Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that, Daniel. So they ran, yes, that's correct. I think YouTube randomly selects the next person who comments in the chat that gets the membership. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, if I'm not mistaken. But that's awesome. Could I be a gifted membership? I'm broke. Hopefully you get gifted by someone soon, Sound. But again, we love you and we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a part of the community here. Seriously. You guys are the absolute best. Brian, again, thank you for that donation too, guys. You guys are beauties. So, now, guys, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I think I've said everything I need to on that front right now. Hopefully, the Mets find themselves further connected with Vladdy should Alonso and things continue the stalemate. Mike, I can't do it with you quick. Trust me. If I could just say, hey, let's just do a live call with one buddy in the chat today, that'd be amazing. But here's the thing, Mike. If I go ahead and do that, then I look like a schmuck to my thousands of followers that are saying, hey, Wardy, I've been dying to call in forever. And you just let this Joe Schmo that I don't even know get in just like that for nothing? Nothing personal, Mike, but we have to make sure it's fair to everybody. I can't just rush and do that when it isn't already pre-planned like we have set up tonight. Warrior, you're the receiver of Mets chatters. Oh, you're too kind, Barry. Thank you kindly for that. And I know we have plenty in the space as well. And I'm very humbled and grateful to see how much growth we've had this year and continue to. The Mets community and space continues to expand. I see a lot of people out there that have certainly been influenced, admire my work, and like to do it in their own forms and stuff of that nature. I see people that have been influenced, but maybe don't admire and just go ahead and want to do their own thing. And that's fine, but just know how much I greatly appreciate the fact that as this community continues to build, we just continue to rise and rise and rise. We're just continuing to hit new highs on the platform every single time out here. It's all thanks to you guys. So Barry, thank you for the donation, and thank you guys for the support. You're absolutely amazing. Wardy, what do you think of the Mets roster as of today? It's definitely not finished, so that's what I think about it. I'm not one of these fans that buys in the Mets roster doesn't look nice today. Oh my goodness, you really feel good about the Mets bullpen? It's pond scum. It's below pond scum. It's dog shit. It's all these things. Yet here we are on January 15th when the Mets are not done making moves. Why are we going to evaluate and grade shit that isn't even done yet? It's stupid. Have we learned anything from last year in David Stearns? Hello? Did you go through the ebbs and flows of 2024? Maybe not to judge a book by its cover every once in a while? I don't know what to tell you. The same schmucks out there that said that Sean Benai and Luis Severino would be at best the sixth starter are the same ones that are absolutely having their you-know-what's in a twist over the Mets' current status of their bullpen, which is a fantastic transition and honestly got me absolutely juiced up to transition in this one. Let's talk about this Mets bullpen now, all right? I got some things to say on this Mets bullpen, and honestly, I got some okay things to say. I don't really have anything negative for you tonight, thankfully. But let's get Vladdy out of here. Let's talk about what the Mets did. Let's start with what they did today. They acquired, via claim, Austin Warren. And I know you guys are chomping at the bit to find out who Austin Warren is, because I know you guys have lost sleep over Austin Warren not being a Met up until this point. Cue the sarcasm, I know. The Mets have announced that they have claimed right-hand pitcher Austin Warren off waivers from the San Francisco Giants. Warren, who posted just over a 1-year ERA and just over 10 innings this past season, but with an expected ERA of over 4, so obviously had some luck on his side. The K-to-walk ratio was horrendous, but again, he only pitched in 10 innings, and across his career in 38 games and 48 innings, has a 3.14 ERA, a 1.2 whip, very solid and respectable numbers there, just over 7 K per 9 to a 2.8 walks per 9. This is a man who's got 3 different fastballs he's working with, right? He's got the sink piece, he's got the four seam, and he's got the cutter. That four seam and cutter, the cutter he didn't utilize at all pretty much, and it's 10 innings this past season. I'm curious how much more that the Mets may look to see what he has out of that in spring training and the lab this year. And the reason why we highlight Austin Warren here is because the Mets claiming him means that as of now, he's a guy that very well could be a part of this Mets bullpen. Is he locked to be in the bullpen? No, of course not. He'll be battling things out just like a plethora of other arms that the Mets have acquired already this offseason. But Warren, what is appealing about him is that even though that he's more on the soft tosser end of a right-hander, which I don't love, he has done a very good job on not giving up hard average exit velocity that we've seen over the past couple of years. And he's a heavy sinker slider guy. That slider plays up really well, has a lot of nice bite on it, especially to the righty matchups, to those righty batters. In the case of lefties as well, having to make sure that's nice and back foot and you're not hanging it over the plate. And that sinker as well, we've seen David Stearns work well with a lot of Mets pitchers on the sinker, slider, sweeper, all those kind of, S combos that you could think of. He's been a part of, and that would be further the case here, splitties as well. That's all in the mix of relievers that David Stearns has really had a knack for liking, as is the case in Jeremy Hefner. To a degree, Desi Driscoll. He'll be working on more of the pitch shape with them, coming from the Yankees organization to the Mets as their assistant pitching coach for the foreseeable future. That is why the Mets made this move. It's because there's a lot that they like with the slide piece. They know that there's more work that can be done there with that sinker that he uses a lot in his arsenal. The fastball's flat. Can they completely get that out of the arsenal entirely? Can they change the shape of it a bit to maybe give it a little bit more deception there for those opposing batters who want to properly utilize it? We'll find out. But yet another arm with upside that the Mets are throwing in the lab after acquiring him and what was a claim from the San Francisco Giants. And the good thing is that one, he's on a split contract, and two, he has a minor league option left. So it's not like the Mets are absolutely stubborn and need to have him start the year at the major league level if they would still like to keep him in the organization. Now, obviously, there may be a mutual agreement, given that it's a split deal, for example, that maybe he would try to opt out of that said deal if he starts the year in AAA. But I'd imagine that for the most part, if he even does start the year with the Mets, he would start there in Syracuse, and then the Mets will evaluate him from there. Dave, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that a lot. Let's see. Wardy statue next to Seaver in front of us. Okay, let's pump the brakes, Dave. I love you. I'd much rather a Soto statue there than me, though. It'll look like Wardy looked when he found out Soto picked Mets. I mean, there you go. That actually makes sense then, where I was just like, oh my God, yada, yada, yada. I'm in favor of that. Thank you, Dave. Love it. Thank you. Knicks 111-109. Did we win? Or is it still a heated battle at the moment? Oh, we're in overtime. Oh my goodness gracious. Of course we are. Knicks in OT. I'd be sweating bullets if I was at the game in Philly right now. Just saw Pat Soto meltdown for the first time. It's amazing. It's amazing. If you guys don't know Pat Hennessy, do yourself a favor and look him up. Great friend of the channel, diehard Yanks fan. He contributes on the platform as well when we do Mets Yankees related conversations together. And Pat is an absolute menace. He purposely acts the way that he does too, and it's because a lot of people take the bait, including when he's trying to bait Mets fans to a degree. So bear that in mind. You guys still fall for it a lot of the time, and it's funny to see it happen because he's doing it no different than any other talking head would when you think of certain radio show hosts, especially if you're catching my drift. But thank you guys for the donations there. Jonathan with a $5 house says, I trust Stearns. Anything less than the NLCS is a failure. The bar is high now. Need bats and a starter. You're great. Let's see. You're great. You are great on SNY. Need more. I really appreciate that, Jonathan, and hopefully we find ourselves more opportunities than ever before here in the year of 2025. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Okay, Knicks up by 5 there with 3.5 to play. We'll take that for sure. But all right, guys, now let's talk about not Austin Warren anymore, but let's talk about who the Mets are actively targeting for their bullpen, and that's Tim Hill. And the reason why I'm in favor of this is for a multitude of reasons. But let's start from the top with Tim Hill, everybody. Tim Hill last season, look at the numbers down below. A nice, a comfortable, and attractive 3.36 ERA across over 60 innings this past season between the Chicago White Sox and the New York Yankees. And the New York Yankees is really where we need to pay close attention, everybody, because Tim Hill, after being acquired by the Yankees, in which he pitched in over 35 innings in the regular season, and then an additional 10 plus in the postseason for them, leading into the World Series, Tim Hill posted a 2 ERA with the Yankees throughout that span, and then just over a 1 ERA in postseason play. Furthermore, when you look at Tim Hill's expected numbers and a 3.56 expected ERA, it tells you that his production last year was not a fluke and it was legit. A very soft tossing southpaw that we know, that is by no means a big strikeout guy, which is the K to walk ratio is essentially like not even a 2. It's crazy. He doesn't strike out guys at a high clip whatsoever, but that's not what you're getting in Tim Hill. You're getting a ridiculous soft tosser that's going to do soft contact, that's going to get those key ground and fly ball outs, and is going to work Houdini magic out of jams consistently with that sidearm action. He's a wacky mofo, and he's absolutely got the Mets' love and their bullpen for the following reasons. The Mets don't have lefty options, so let's start with that. Brooks Raley's a free agent that the Yankees and other teams are talking to on a multi-year deal as he's rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. I would love Brooks Raley back, but I know he wouldn't be able to immediately impact the Mets, so that's probably why the Mets will not bring him back for possible reason. In the case of Tim Hill, however, he would be automatically their number one lefty option in this bullpen. He's been pretty consistent throughout his veteran career. We know where we're getting with him. He has playoff success, and he succeeded on the biggest stage for the Yankees, leading all the way up to the World Series. That has nothing to scoff at. He just showed right before our very eyes in New York, in the biggest market imaginable, what he was able to do. And a big reason as to why I think that this is almost inevitable to happen, should he say not go back to the Yankees, is because of Desi Druskull. As you guys are well aware, that I've highlighted plenty on the platform. Desi Druskull, who was most recently the assistant pitching coach for the Yankees this past year, who worked heavily with Clay Holmes, and who also worked heavily one-on-one with, yes, you guessed it, Tim Hill. They will likely rekindle that relationship together by Tim Hill signing with the Mets on a one-year deal, and that is what I foresee to happen should the Mets make a bullpen move for the lefty. So they've been heavily involved in that market per Tim Healy of Newsday, as of a couple hours ago, was first reported on. And I like Tim Healy a lot as a lefty option, but I would like to reiterate this, I am only in favor of Tim Hill being this lefty option as long as the Mets make sure that they do something of higher quality to this bullpen. Whether that is Tanner Scott, that they throw ridiculous high AV to on a multi-year deal because he would be your flame-throwing lefty option. Tim Hill's a soft tosser. The Mets don't have anyone that throws gas as a lefty unless your name is Genesis Cabrera, and the guy is still trying to just crack the bullpen for the Mets as a spring training invite on a minor league deal, so bear that in mind. Major or minor league deal, either way, he's competing for a bullpen spot, but isn't a guarantee for Genesis Cabrera, that we know. That's the only flame-throwing lefty that we kind of have knowledge of that's expected to impact this bullpen right away in 2025. The Mets need a Tanner Scott type. They need a true shutdown setup type, and that's why if it isn't going to be Tanner Scott, then it needs to be a right-hander that can get lefties out at a quality rate, which is exactly why we have reiterated not only my continued interest, but the interest that you'd imagine that the Mets will have if they haven't already at this point, and bringing in the veteran, the man that was here just a couple of years ago, and a man that would finally be able to be put in the role that he was destined to be back in the 2023 season. And that's going to be our guy and Mr. David Robertson going into the actual setup role for Edwin Diaz. That is a role where even with him pushing the age of 40, a ridiculous year with the Rangers this past year, like actually not even fair how good of a year he had this past year for the Rangers. And he is an ageless wonder. He ages like a fine wine, which is David Robertson. And with an over 12 K per nine to a 3.4 walks per nine, a guy who's thrived in Queens in 2023 up until he was traded to Miami, a guy who's won it all with the Yankees, knows what it takes to win a big market. He knows all about it in New York. He's been here, he's done that on both sides. Doesn't matter what borough he's a part of. He will get the job done for you. Further reason as to why I look at David Robertson as a slam dunk fit, short-term fit for the Mets, and they do lose out on a Tanner Scott because, say, a team gives him just an absolutely ridiculous deal that even for the Mets, you're like, yeah, I can see that backfired or not being in the best interest of them. So definitely let me know how you guys feel on not only the David Robertson front to a degree, but ultimately on what we just highlighted in Tim Hill, because Tim Hill, based on the numbers, based on what his value will be as a pitcher and everything, he feels like a further reality. Okay, New York Knicks are going to win is what it looks like. They're up 123 to 114 with one to play. I'm not going to jinx anything, but I like to see that. Hopefully they can hold it down and win this one, a big one in overtime in Philadelphia against, yes, the 76ers without Joel Embiid tonight. I know the Knicks were also without our guy in Cat tonight as well, but Jericho Sims was in, and he has 8 points and 7 rebounds. And let's see who broke out offensively. JB had his game there. The Nova Nick, the man who knows how to battle in Philly easily as a guy who dominated there during his college days, and that Wells Fargo Center especially. Far from shocking to see Jalen Brunson with 38 points in 43 minutes and counting for our New York Knicks, to my Knicks fans out there. But, folks, I like Tim Hill. let me take a quick pan to how Tim Hill looks. If we look through Baseball Savant, this was the Savant numbers this past year, and you guys can see there with me. Again, 69th percentile in expected ERA. Expected batting average, 16th percentile. Fastball velocity, he averages 90 miles per hour, not even. Average exit velocity, that's impressive to me. For a guy that's as soft tossing as Tim Hill is, he was in the 74th percentile among relievers and average exit velocity at 88 miles per hour. Chase percentage, 68%. Whiff and K percentage, 1 percentile. Again, he doesn't get anyone to chase at all. That's not Tim Hill's game, though. That's okay. Walk percentage, 70th percentile. Barrel percentage, everybody, 100th percentile. No one barreled Tim Hill for shit last year. Nobody. Not a zip, nothing. Hard hit percentage, 33rd percentile. Ground ball percentage, 100. No one is inducing ground balls better than Tim Hill in the game of baseball. That's a big deal right there. When we look at the extension, the 83rd percentile as well with the 6'4", 210 frame. That is what you're getting in Tim Hill. A masterful ground ball, sinker, four-seam slider type. And the fact that he's a sinker slider type alone is exactly further reason as to why I think we're going to be talking very soon here on the platform. Breaking news. The Mets have officially signed Tim Hill to a one-year contract, and we're going to further reiterate why this is a great pickup for the Mets. And when that inevitably happens for the Mets, should it happen, we'll probably have our pitching contributor and Isaac Groffman joining the platform to share his thoughts on a deeper dive, really getting into the numbers as to what makes Tim Hill so sexy for the Mets and how they can really try to exacerbate his upside with them in the 2025 season. But folks, before I get close to wrapping things up for you all, if you guys have any key comments or questions that you guys would like me to answer over the next couple minutes, I would gladly love to do exactly that, as well as informing you that yes, the Mets are still involved for a bat outside of Alonso. The Mets are still in the market for a Jesse Winker. They are still linked to Santander. It just isn't as likely, barring changes. Santander feels more likely if the Mets lose out on Alonso than if they bring in Alonso, just because there would be a further urgency to try to replace that power right away. And you know that trying to trade for Vlad, again, is easier said than done. He's staying in Toronto, plus they signed Hoffman. They're all in. I'm sorry to break this to you, my friend, but if you think that signing Mr. Hoffman after failing 2 physicals with major teams and the Orioles and the Braves is like something that should be like league shattering about going all in, I got news for you, because the Toronto Blue Jays are not close with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now. And all latest reporting per TSN is indicating that they're not only not close, but that's going to need to significantly change, and they want to get anywhere closer to an extension. Because by the time we reach the start of the season, just like Francisco Lindor did with Steve Cohen and Zach Scott entering the 2021 regular season, by the time it reaches midnight and is officially the day of opening day, Lindor was done extension talks. He got it done on the buzzer in that final hour or so. In the case of Vladdy, it's going to take a lot for Toronto to get this done. And just as much as I know Blue Jay fans do not want to see Vladdy go, I think also need to be cognizant and very wary of the reality that there's nothing leaning in favor of Vladdy to get an extension right now, nor should he. It's in the best interest of him and his career going forward to hit the free agent market. Because even if he really wants to stay with Toronto, why wouldn't he want to go back to Toronto more on his terms than an extension after a bidding war where he knows the Toronto Blue Jays have endless dollars to spend because they haven't gotten a chance to spend their money in the proper ways over the past couple of years because they swung and missed on the biggest fishes out there for the most part. So when you just know that common knowledge, you come to the realization of, okay, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be looking for a bag. He's looking for a $450+ million bag that'll inevitably come from the bidding wars that come from the Toronto Blue Jays bidding with the rivals in the division and the Boston Red Sox and bidding with Steve Cohen ran Mets. That's where we find ourselves. And again, do I think Vladdy's going to be traded right now? No. But do I hope that the Mets land him, especially if Alonso isn't here long term? Absolutely. I think that's perfectly fine. How healthy is Mauricio? Great question, Barry. And to answer that, latest reporting indicates that Mauricio is finally doing baseball activities. He's still like slow roll and everything, but so far so good when it comes to Ronnie. And he obviously, Knicks win 125, 119. Bang. We love to see that. Absolutely love to see that. Shout out to my Knicks fans out there. Anyone that was representing in Philly tonight, you're absolute beauties. Love you for it. Stay safe and get home safe, please, guys. But to reel back in for a second, when we talk about where things stand in the case of Vladdy in case of Mauricio, rather, I should be saying, Ronnie will more than likely start the year at AAA Syracuse. He needs to get his footing right. He needs to get back into the flow of baseball games. And it's hard to envision him shaking off not only the rust, but performing so well in spring training to the point where he forces himself on the roster right away. Is it impossible? No. But I think he just needs at least a month or two in Syracuse before getting the call because he missed over a year of professional play. Like that's a significant period of time, and rehabbing a significant injury when he went on a long period of time without baseball activities is also notable. So it'll be telling to see how rusty or how locked in Ronnie is when we pay attention in this spring training. And when I'm inevitably in attendance there in spring training for, north of a week, like I try to do every year with fellow creators, I will definitely keep an eye on Ronnie there too to see how he's looking and see how those at-bats are taking. And guys, before I let you out here, there's one final thing I want to share and show to each and every one of you at the moment. And that is actually going to be right here. Let's just pull this up for a second. Here we go. So you guys can see, here we have the Stark Raving Sports YouTube channel. For those that don't know, Stark Raving Sports, folks, this is one of the best, in my opinion, baseball YouTube channels. I mean, sports YouTube channels in general out there. They're tremendous. I'm very close friends with Mike and Matt, who are the heads there, and a lot of the other talking heads that are reoccurring creators for them each and every month. And Mike, my buddy that I hang out with every spring training, along with Draft Nick Mark and a lot of others in the community, came out with a 1 hour and 16-minute long mini doc on the Mets 2024 season. It is nothing short of tremendous. I was very grateful to be a part of this. You guys see me talk a bit in this one. I won't tell you on what I'm talking about, but I am in the video for multiple minutes, so check that out. Draft Nick Mark is collaborated in this as well. And it's just a tremendous discussion on just how magical that 2024 Mets run was, and now it sets the precedent for how we go about our viewpoint as fans and how the organization will be viewed going forward now into 2025 and beyond. Check out that video if you guys haven't already. It's a tremendous doc. As long as you guys just get some time to relax for an hour and are trying to chime into something that's very different from what we're doing here, that is evergreen content of a true, thorough, and properly edited documentary. Whereas here, we're more talking on, obviously, the latest hot button topics and trying to give our quick reactions and thoughts to the latest in Mets land. So for your evergreen content, head over to Stark Raving Sports. For everything in Mets land, everything that's relevant right now, we got you covered here at WardyNYM. But guys, that is going to do it for the show. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys have already, please smash that like and subscribe on your way in or out whenever you're watching this. Let us know your biggest takeaways in the comments down below, and be on the lookout as we have more content inevitably rolling out all throughout the remainder of the week and all off season long here on the WardyNYM platform. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.